for joining us for this edition of To My Way of Thinking, an opportunity to talk with some tree shakers and policymakers and those who will be making some contributions to our world, our city, state, and nation in the days to come. Today, we are going to be speaking with the candidate for sheriff, Lakeisha Burton, Lakeisha Anderson Burton, if I'm not mistaken, if I read that bio right. And one of the things I always wanted to ask you, Lakeisha, is it Lakeisha or Lakeisha?
Lakeisha.
Okay.
I've heard several things, Lakeisha, Lakeisha, but it's Lakeisha.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, because that's one of the things that popped up. Usually with the Keishas, there's an I in there someplace, and yours doesn't have an I, straight up.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get right to it. What is the state of law enforcement in Duval County today?
Ooh, that's a big question. So the state right now, I think it's a lot going on. Obviously, after 2020, the George Floyd, I think that our city was turned upside down like many cities across the country. So right now, I think that we are dealing with our number one issue is the violent crime in the city, and we'll be talking a lot about the relationships, the need to bridge the gap between law enforcement and our community. Those are things that we've been talking about and working on for a very long time. But right now, I just think that addressing our violent crime and continuing to work on building relationships in our community is vital.
Well, now, one of the things about it, and you were on the force, you've recently retired as we record this episode today. You've just recently retired within the last couple of weeks, coming into April. But you were on the force during the 2021 spate of, I'll just call them what they were, riots and encounters between police and civilians that occurred all across the country. We had our share of that here in Jacksonville along Bay Street in particular. And from what I understand, you were in uniform and on the front lines with that. When I say what the state of law enforcement is here in town, what is the state of law enforcement as you see it in Duval County? Because you're going to be ascending to one of the highest positions in law enforcement in this county, and charged with making sure that things go according to plan. So
that's right.
How are the police? What's the attitude? What was the feeling among the rank and file about their jobs? What is the feeling that you're getting on the other side of the line from citizens about how they're being treated, about those in law enforcement? I get some feedback from some of the folks out at the beaches, particularly some of the law enforcement people out at the beaches. One of the things, even though as sheriff, of course, you backed up the beaches and Baldwin, and they're because they have a constitution, they have a mayor and a police force of their own, but we back them up, and if what their jails can't handle, of course, we bring them downtown. But there's some feeling out of the beaches that one of the reasons they like to take care of their business because the police from town act a little uppity, to use it nicely, and toward their citizens. And they prefer to try to handle it themselves as best they can. So again, what do you think of the state, given all of that? What's the state of law enforcement?
Yeah. So let's start back with what you said. I was on the front lines here in Duval County when we had our riot, and I was standing right next to the mobile field force. I didn't have to work. I volunteered to go work because I thought I would be an asset to kind of being a liaison between the community and law enforcement. So that's why I was down there. But again, I think that that incident and that space and those incidents that took place then, it really changed the dynamics of law enforcement. So, and just understand, our agency is very, very young. 70% of our workforce have 7 years or less on the agency. So I just think that when you think about or ask the question how long officers are feeling, it's a myriad of emotions. You're working with a young generation of officers, working in a profession that has a lot of It's very dangerous, right? A lot of acute chronic stresses that come with this job and trying to learn it. But then you have a community that, quite frankly, people are upset, people are hurt. And all the different areas of our city, people have different perceptions and experiences with the police. So from my perspective, I just think that in terms of the beaches, I think that we work really well with our stakeholders, all over our city and our county. So we do have work to do. There is a distrust there. Our community feel like there's a lack of transparency, but I see all sides of it. And I'll just tell you the truth. After the George Floyd, the effects of that really got me thinking about what can I do to further close this divide between law enforcement and our community. For the first time in my career, Mr. Fred, I realized that I was both Black and blue. And I took to social media and I started talking about it because myself, along with a lot of other African-American officers, we had never really experienced what we experienced then. Somebody who has grown up wanting to be in law enforcement and obviously serving proudly in his profession, but also being a Black woman. So during that time, we saw that we were kind of pulled back and forth. So my position was, how do we begin to work together to unify? So I just think that it depends on where you go at in this city. Obviously, different zip codes in our city have different feelings towards the police, and we've seen that in our surveys. And I'm not crazy not to understand some of the plight of different the communities that we serve.
All right, you began to move into the next issue that I was going to bring up, and that is, what are the priorities for each side of the county? Everybody has a different issue. There's a different set of issues. Some the same for Mandarin, totally different in Arlington, which is seen an uptick. And I would say criminal activity, especially shootings, have begun to rise in Arlington, your old zone, by the way.
Yes.
Of course, there's the east side, and there's the north side, there's the northwest side, there's the west side. And of course, there's downtown and the south side. What kind of priorities are you looking to put on each side of town? I know we're all zoned out, but each one has priorities. What are you looking at as priorities for these different sides?
Yeah, well, first of all, I can just tell you, violent crime is all over. We have different pockets all over. Crime, is everywhere. So obviously, violent crime is the priority. So when you move into different areas of the zone, like in the zone 1, the downtown area, you have a lot of issues with transient homeless population. In Mandarin, you may have a lot of the opioid addictions, the drug, and obviously Northwest Jacks, Arlington, we have seen an uptick in violent crime. And it just didn't happen. It's been happening over the last decade.
So, do you think that we need to change the priorities from what we've been doing? For instance, I'm understanding that we still have a gang problem here. And of course, it's like many cities, it's not the same gang problem we had 30 years ago. Where when we started the gang unit, and quite frankly, at the beginning of the problem, the sheriff's office, among others, kind of denied that we had one until it became obvious that there was one, especially given the crack epidemic that has come up. Now, my understanding is that the gangs we have here are sort of reflecting what happens in other cities. We don't just have African-American dominated gangs now. We have gangs from different ethnicities. And of course, even some European gangs have come here. Do we have a gang problem? And what do you see? Where is it more prolific?
Yeah, I definitely think that we have a gang problem. I would not deny that. So Currently, our agency is tracking roughly 39 criminal street gangs and 733 documented members. So what I would say is that we have to start looking at early intervention and prevention, right? Reaching out to our young kids at an early age. I was just at a school, elementary school, just 2 weeks ago, and I went to take pictures with our young kids, and they started throwing up gang signs. So I think that we need to look at our crime problem, our gang issue, whatever issue we have, from a holistic approach. We have learned over the years that just making arrests is not solving our problem. So I think that we have to invest more in education, prevention and intervention, and enforcement. So those who are out here committing violent crimes in our streets, they need to be locked up. But there is a whole young generation of young people that are needing guidance. They are needing direction. So I just think that really investing in programs is important to address our gang issue.
If you would,
and I'll just say, I'm sorry, and it's not even gang issue. I think our young people are getting more involved in just criminal activity. They may not necessarily be a part of a gang, but juvenile delinquents, I see, has increased over the years, and young people are with this new technology and perhaps hanging with the wrong people. And obviously, a lot of the social issues that are happening in many of our communities that affect a child's life.
So what do you see as a difference between your law enforcement priorities between Arlington, and let's just take Arlington and the west side of Jacksonville, that area between 103rd Street, where all the streets are named after fairy tales out there on the west side of Jacksonville, as they used to call it, 103rd Street, Jamie's Road, that area up in there versus Arlington. What do you see as the different priorities that officers or that the zone commanders are having to take?
Well, I'll tell you what I think that the zone commanders should be doing. I think that we all should be taking the approach to cultivate a community-oriented policing with our young officers. So when I started back in 1999 under Sheriff Glover, community policing was the fabric of every police officer. I just think that over the years, we've gotten away from that fundamental purpose of why we serve as police officers. So I just think that has to be the foundation of every police officer and every leader. So these officers will have the tools to know how to engage with the community that we serve. So in terms of the different areas of our city, I certainly don't think that we should take this broad brush and just think that we're going to solve our issues. What you have to do is go into these communities and get to know the people and really build trust, but also work with the community to problem solve some of those issues. And when you get out there in those communities, you have to identify what the issues are and then customize that approach for those specific issues. So I think that's very important. So, but ultimately, I just think that first we have to look at our agency. We have a young agency. 70% of our officers have 7 years or less. So I see it truly as an opportunity to begin to change a culture of policing. Obviously, policing has changed over the years, and I just think that is critical to officers to have the foundation of understanding how to bridge the gap, because all the surveys that we do, it talk about the lack of trust. So until we deal with the trust issues, it's very difficult to address a lot of the crime many times because people are unwilling to work with us.
Now, you have had the benefit, as many of the candidates for sheriff, of coming up through the ranks and being well thought of, obviously, by your superiors at the time up to this point. Mm-hmm. But you are looking to be in charge of what, more than 1,000 officers and a workforce of what, nearly 3,000 when you consider everything in place, the jail, the civilians that work there, all of that. What are you going to do? What is a Burton administration? Is the Burton administration going to be any different from Williams administration or a Glover administration or a McMillan administration. What makes it any different in your administration than what's already taken place?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I have a combination of a little bit of everything. I've had the pleasure of working for 3 sheriffs, and they all gave me opportunity. But I think that, you look at law enforcement, you have enforcement, but then you have community policing. I just think that you don't have one or the other. It has to be both. It has to be a unified approach. So that's certainly what you will get from me. Really looking at things from a holistic lens and addressing them accordingly. It's not one or the other. So I plan to, when I get in office, is to select some of the top-notch people in this agency that have experience, that have the expertise, but not only that has a heart for our community, and people that are going to recognize that as law enforcement, we can do better, and we need to do better for our community. So I'm excited for that opportunity.
There's been a great deal of development taking place downtown. A lot of buildings torn down. We just blew up one just a couple of weeks before we're having this conversation. We're getting ready to, the developer has his way. He's looking to build a 41-story spire in place of where the old Burton 2 used to be, which is right across the street from the sheriff's office and the county jail. And of course, we've got what I call Conland down Bay Street there, where he's looking to bring in a 5 Seasons hotel plus some other amenities, change their docks. We're looking to bring in a new Navy cruiser into there, so as a sort of a museum again across the street. Museum of Science and History is looking to move in. Also in that same block, and the Fire Museum has just been rolled down on that same side of the street, all across from the sheriff's office. What about? But then there's the jail. The inmates get an excellent view of the riverfront and everything else. Everything else along there that's taking place, and the residents get a great view of the jail. What about? Should we move the jail?
Absolutely. Actually, there are talks being had right now over the last few years that jail is going to be moved. So obviously, that's prime realty down there, and the current sheriff right now is having some discussions about it. So I can't wait to see when I get in what progress they've made. So and with all of the new additions that's going on, that's supposed to take place, I think that's going to be really good for our city, for our economy. So we just need to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of resources in patrol.
So you're in favor of moving the jail if it comes to that?
Well, oh yeah, I am.
Oh.
Yeah,
I'll admit that's a bit surprising to me, because I've gotten different answers around. Some saying those outside of the sheriff's office, believe it or not, fairly upright in saying yes, we should move it, but there's a lot of buts, and I would think that the first obstruction to that would be the sheriff herself. If the sheriff is okay with moving it, then the rest of the activity can take place. But we do have the next issue. Where would we move it to? Given all downtown, given all the spaces downtown, many of them are gone, and of course there's the issue of getting the first hearings done for persons who've been arrested, getting the first hearing done in front of a judge. So. Yes, as to where it might go.
Well, and from what I've been hearing, some of the suggestions have been possibly moving the jail out to where the prison is. There's a lot of land out there on the north side, and obviously there have to be some discussions about where do we transport prisoners? How do we get them out there? So it's a lot of conversations that have to take place. But those buildings are very, very old. They're very old, and from what I've in early planning discussions, but from what I'm hearing, it sounds that it will be feasible. but it's way too early.
All right. Let's go back to policing a minute.
Okay.
De-escalation. Jacksonville has been fairly fortunate, at least that I've seen publicized, is that we haven't had that many publicized encounters between police and those who might be arrested or being stopped, with the exception, of course, of what happened last year during the George Floyd riot era. But one of the cases that does stick out to me is an incident that happened a few months back with a young man over on Cassett Avenue and San Juan at the corner there. They were stopped. He was not the driver. He was a passenger, apparently, and it was obviously having a mental issue at the time. It was reported that they did see a gun. And in the end, the final report, at least that I've been able to understand, reported that he held the gun up to himself and probably shot himself. The problem with that I would see with it is that he was also shot 13 times on this issue. The video seems to reveal that he was obviously having a mental break. But again, he was shot 13 times. The issue of de-escalation does still come up because it doesn't take but one episode to mar everything that you've done. Have you seen, have your officers that have served under you and that you serve with, is this a major part of training? Is it something that's discussed at all among rank and file and among the training that they're given?
Absolutely. Escalation training is something that we train at the academy and even at roll calls each day. It's a conversation that happens all the time. But not only that, that's why it's important. And I always encourage our supervisors to get out here with these young officers and go on the calls and really train. These young officers need continuous coaching and mentorship and supervision out there with them so they can be held accountable. But I just think that it's important that we continue to utilize different resources to train them. So at the police academy, they've even started doing jiu-jitsu training as well. So that helps officers learn how to physically, without using a weapon, detain and restrain. So I just think that that's going to be always important to do.
Give us 3 priorities for a Burton administration. More if you need to, but give me top 3 priorities for a Burton administration.
Yes. Well, I just tell you, just from going around this city, talking with people, and obviously we get these surveys all the time, people are concerned about public safety. But the other 2 things that are coming to my attention is people want more police presence in our community, and then also more positive interaction. So those are the 3 things right now that I'm listening and hearing from the people citywide. So it just lets me know that we have work to do. And I just believe that until we building stronger relationships will result in more crime reduction.
Now, you've been, as we speak today, your campaign opened more than a year ago, and you just retired from the sheriff's office after some years, and now you're pretty much open to get this going. We're just about a year out to the day. By this time next year, you'll either be in a runoff with one other candidate, or you'll be sheriff. Who is Lakeisha Burton?
Who is Lakeisha Burton? Well, I just tell you, I am a woman of faith. I am a woman of integrity. Obviously, I'm a wife and I'm a mother. But I knew early on in my young life that God wanted to use my life to serve this community. And that's what I've been doing. And I got in this race early on because I felt like the voters of Duval County deserve options on the ballot, right? I believe that the next sheriff needs to be somebody who is bold and courageous, but also somebody who's been in the trenches that understand how to serve all this diverse community and teach our agency how to do the same. But also, it's important that you have a leader that has the respect of the men and women that's out here doing this job. Again, I can't even stress the importance of or the seriousness of how young our workforce is. We literally have a different agency. So, and if you go back and think about our violent crime issue for the last 2 decades, our violent crime has been ticking up. So in last year, we finally saw a breakthrough where we saw a 4% reduction across the city. And under my leadership in the Arlington area, we saw a record-breaking 16% reduction and over there. So I think that spoke volumes, but it speaks to a culture that was able to be shifted in those officers in that zone. And as a result, they bought into the whole concept of community-oriented policing. They knew that we had to put the bad guys in jail, but they understand is equally, we needed to be proactive and get out our cars and go into businesses and partner with our faith-based and business community to address a lot of issues that's going on in our community. And it just shows when we work together, we can get things done.
Now, one of the things about your biography that intrigued me was, of course, the issues that you had as a young person growing up in this community. But you did, of course, make it to junior college. But what was I missed the part that tells me why you decided to go to a criminal justice career and then apply to be a police officer. What was it that encouraged you to make that turn?
It was a result of me being a survivor of childhood sex abuse. And the person that basically raped me, he was arrested for 2 weeks and got out. So I always felt like I wanted to be a police officer to make sure that I put all child abusers in jail and all those who victimize people in our community and do a thorough investigation and lock the people up and they get the time for their crimes. So that was really my motivation. And actually, it was the encounter that I had with that police officer after years of being abused. My first encounter was negative. The officer told me that I was lying, So I always thought, when people say they've been victimized, we need to listen to them and we need to treat them accordingly and ensure that they maintain their dignity. So I'm proud that I have always, that's the type of police officer I've been. So criminal justice was it.
So is sexual slavery, trafficking, as we now call it, is that something we've always had it, but now it has become more of a term of art? Is sex trafficking become a major issue within Duval County and surrounding areas now?
It has. And to your point, we've always had it. We just never knew how to define it, and quite frankly, it's people like me, survivors speaking up saying, hey, I was a victim of this and I want to help other people. And it gives other victims courage to speak up, but also it brings awareness and education. And thank God for all the resources that are here now available. So it certainly is something that is rampant here in our city and all over. And I work with several organizations that deal directly with that.
All right. Now you're running as a Democrat in a town that is largely elected Republicans. In fact, Republicans hold every major seat in the county. I can't think of any that they don't hold at this point in time, despite the fact that Democrats have a slight lead in terms of registered voters. But again, you're running a bit against the wave there. Do you see that? Obviously, you see that there's an opening for you in particular. But what are you doing to make sure that everybody understands that they can vote across the party line?
Honestly, I'm just being honest. I just think that it's time for law enforcement, the leadership, the whole idea of what law enforcement is to look different. So, and that different is somebody who's authentic, right? And I just speak to the people. I tell everybody that I'm running on my reputation, my record, and my results. So when I'm speaking to people, my message is transcending my brown skin, my gender, my political party, my age. I think that we're in a time where people want change. We want change. We need change. So why not go with the person who has a proven record of being able to make that change? So, and I tell you this, I'm proud to have, I have the most diverse support across all party lines, you know. So I believe that law enforcement has become overly politicized at a detriment of police departments across this country. And so when you call 911, sir, you're not asking for a Republican officer or a Democratic officer, right? You want a well-trained police officer to respond. So I think that it's time for us to get back to serving the people, you know? So I say that all the time, that my candidacy is not about prestige. Even though I'm the first woman to run, I'll be the first Black woman in Florida. And I say it's not about political party. I am a proud Democrat, but being a police officer isn't about being a party. It's about serving the people. And then finally, I always say it's not about the power. We've seen people abuse power all the time. And when that power is abused, you exclude so many people that we have sworn to protect. So that's really my message, that I just want to get back to serving the people. And I recognize that we are so divided. And if I didn't know then, I know now after this year, traveling all over the city. So I believe that every single person who has listened to me, who has donated, who is supporting me, they all at their core, we are saying that we want change and we understand that we are stronger together and it's time to unify.
All right, great. Lakeisha Burton, now 23-year veteran of the Duval County Sheriff's Department, candidate for Sheriff of Duval County, all of Duval County, within the next 11 months. I appreciate your time this morning. I hope we can get together one more time in the final weeks before that big day comes to see how you're doing.
Yes, we'll make it happen.
All right, but we'll certainly be following. Again, thank you for your time, Lakeisha.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Up next, Fred's Reviews, a look at today's movies and how we feel about it. Windfall, released in 2022 on Netflix. A rather dull kill 'em all.
I forgot how gorgeous this place is.
Babe! This guy breaks into my house. Don't leave! And you just sit down on the couch. Okay, but how about you let go of my wife first? And I've had to hold his hand. How does this open? Is there a trick to the purse?
No!
There's a clasp. And help him rob us.
I want $150,000.
Do you think that's enough?
Yeah, I think you're probably gonna want more than that.
I can get you the money.
Tomorrow.
What?
Why me?
I owe you something, right? You owe a debt to a hell of a lot more people than just me.
Cinematic attempts at character studies are tricky because they often depend a great deal on the writer, scripting, skilled actors, and of course, direction. Windfall includes noble attempts by actors Jesse Plemons, Lily Collins, and Jason Segel to hold together a tale that keeps the audience wondering what's going to happen right up until the gardener shows up. For some reason, Plemons is drawn to these long, character-driven, dull scripted movies. Remember Power of the Dog? This is not a believable tale. It's not even realistic. And it's yet another reason why you would not drop $10 to see this on the big screen unless you just enjoy torturing yourself and whoever attends with you. Spoiler alert, except for the gardener played by Omar Leyva, none of the characters have any redeeming qualities. I won't watch this again. Give it 6 of 10 stars. Windfall, released on 2022 in Netflix. That's going to be it for this week's edition of Fred's Reviews. See you again next time on To My Way of Thinking.